Emilie, thank you very much for your patience today. Just so everyone else knows, tell everyone where you're calling from.
Hi, yes, great to see you again, Ash. I'm calling from London in the UK.
From London, and I know that today is an interesting day. You are going to have another prime minister, you know what I mean? So today is October 20th, right? Just to kind of date the time. We hope that, you guys find some good leadership, in the UK, but that's more of an overarching topical element. We're going to hear from you in terms of your elevator pitch. Would love to go into a little bit more details around that. Let's go from there, right? So I've hit the top of the elevator. I'm going to introduce myself and let's get started. All right. Excellent. Hello, hi, my name is Ash Singh. I am a distant relative to the British royal family, and I'm looking to invest in interesting startups that are going to help society. Tell me a little bit about what you're working on. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So my name is Emilie Nelson, and I'm the founder and CEO of MiSeia, a personal safety app that focuses on tackling sexual harassment and abuse through a variety of prevention, emergency, and support services. So sexual harassment and abuse is on the rise throughout the United Kingdom, with 75% of the UK population having experienced sexual harassment in some form or another, and 1.6 million adults having experienced sexual assault by rape or penetration since the age of 16. 85% of rapes go unreported, and the National Healthcare Service is unable to keep up with the demand for victim care. The cost of gender-based violence in the EU is at 366 billion euros a year, and this is where we come in. So we've identified a distinct lack of resources available to address the need for personal and communal safety. That is why we're leveraging the power of technology, community, and education, and aim to tackle underreporting, refine emergency responses through tracking and geofence technologies, and empower our users to make educated decisions regarding their personal safety. We all want to feel safe and be safe, and wish the same for our loved ones. So we have built our MVP, and we're gearing ourselves up for a soft release in the coming weeks. And that is why I'm raising £150,000 at a £2 million valuation in order to continue development, growing the team, and expanding operations.
Got it. Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Let's get some feedback for Emilie's idea. MiSeia. Tell me a little bit about the name. Tell me a bit about give us a bit of a background on the name.
Right, so Seiya is I know it's a little bit of a tricky name. It's MiSeia or MiSeia. Okay. We have a preference, and we quite like the ambiguity. But it is, so Seiya is the goddess of sowing seeds and watching them grow. And yes. So that was where the element of protection came in. And instead of putting the Y, which I didn't like the look of, I decided to opt in for MI. So
got it. Interesting. So let's try to dissect this. Okay. Now, you shared some interesting data, which was really high. You talked about experience of sexual harassment in the UK. What was that number again? Because you went through a lot of numbers. Tell me a little bit about that number again.
So sexual abuse has been on the rise in the UK. It's increased by 300% in the last decade. And that is not because of increased reporting. It's quite the opposite. 75% of the UK population has experienced sexual harassment. So
70%.
Right, 75%.
75% of the UK population. Okay.
Right.
I think it's important for us to unpack this a little bit, because a lot of us, the startup world seems to be more male dominated. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share some very interesting data points that I think are relevant. So 75% of the UK population has experienced some form of sexual harassment.
That's right.
Normally, we think about sexual harassment from more of a female perspective, right? It's like, you might be at a bar or a club and there's a pretty girl there and people are, you know what I mean? That's kind of the typical stuff we see in the media. But what you're saying is 75% of the population, which includes males as well.
That's right.
Okay? So, so this is a real big issue. correct? It's a big issue, right?
Yes, and it's actually it was highlighted as one of the top 5 issues this was a study made by published by Deloitte, one of the top 5 issues facing our generation. So it's on people's minds more and more.
And like when I think of, I mean, that number just seems really high, Emily. Just seems really high, right? It's like one of those, really, it's almost and obviously we want to talk more about your startup, but there's a lot to unpack on that, because if 75% of any population is dealing with sexual harassment, whether it's as a kid, as they get older, when they go partying, or whatever the case is, this obviously has a direct correlation to mental health, right? Right? Because, when I think about this, the question is what kind of app are you creating, right? And so as you were pitching, my brain was more around prevention and the elements around that. And you talked a little bit about the geofencing, but the key thing around it is like, because there's the post-experience, the post-traumatic experience stuff, right? Whether you have to go to a hospital or find a shrink or all of that stuff. But when I think about this, it's 2022, right? For me as an investor, I'm more interested in the prevention component. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
because I think we should, like in 2022, right? How do you know what I mean? So talk to me a little bit about the prevention piece, because like I feel like there's so much technology out there. There's so much information out there. There should be a methodology and a process for safe spaces. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
I know this sounds awkward, okay? But like when we think about systems and tools, right? Whenever I want to go shopping, okay, at a Walmart, for instance, I can go on Google and I have this thing about traffic, right? How busy the place is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
My question is like, when I think about this, how can we as a society using technology, and you've obviously spent a lot of time on this, how do you in a simple way create an avenue so people can address and look at the risk propensity, right? Because it's like, there are some places that might be a little bit more dangerous or more susceptible from just from stuff like sexual harassment that doesn't happen inside the house, right? Because that's stuff that we, so tell me a little bit about the prevention piece, right? And I'm trying to figure out there has to be a novel way to make sure that you can improve the 75%. The number just seems easily improved upon, right? Go ahead.
So for our prevention features, and now I don't want to go ahead and list these without giving you a little bit more context. So I'll just run you through kind of the main ones. And I think everything else is relatively self-explanatory. But we have a personalized pre-made messaging service where you can create your groups, create your community, switch your tracking on and off, depending on who you'd like following you during the day. We have a personalized tracking system with a geofence technology. So say I would go out to a club with friends, we would set a radius of 250 meters, let's say, and should a friend of mine exit that geofence, I would immediately be notified, Hannah has exited the geofence, would you like to see where she is? And so I would gain access to her location, and it would be a broadcast of messages to our emergency contacts. We have a private panic button that works with, again, the emergency contacts that you set up yourself. Safest travel route home. We do this using police crime hotspots. So we work with the Met Police to identify the more dangerous roads, higher crime, let's say, buildings, locations that people could avoid. We have a location and nightlife rating platform. So we're going to be working with a lot of venues, clubs, bars, restaurants, and holding places accountable for their approach towards sexual safety of clients. We're working with Bolt and Uber to offer pre-booking taxis that would be verified with potentially female-only drivers, which benefits them as well. We're working with the Met Police, so directly you're able to report a crime through our application. We have a list of emergency phone numbers. So let's say you're from London, but you're traveling to Barcelona. If something were to happen, a lot of us don't Google in advance which phone numbers we're going to need to be calling should something happen. So instead of having to go and do a Google search, you can access those immediately through our app. And we also have a functionality. When you click on this little search engine, immediately you can see on a map where the nearest hospitals are, where the nearest sexual health clinics are, where the nearest police stations are, and wellbeing services and the rest of it. And then when you were mentioning support, naturally, that's a huge part of the issue that we're trying to tackle. So we are actually building a mental health care matchup service that's specific to victims of sexual abuse. And so we connect our mental health users with professionals who are who've trained in that field specifically. We're also including an anonymous hotline that is external. We're not building that ourselves, but we're also providing health and legal information and advice. So should someone experience something and not know what to do, we have a bunch of information pages and blogs that could help our users make educated decisions about what the best course of action is for them.
Interesting. Yeah, because that's when they've experienced it again, right? That's kind of the key point. And my sense, because you've just launched the app, there's a lot of features that you have, right? And you know, I still feel like I'm just trying to figure out the use case, right? The use case would be like, because part of this is just simplicity. Users with their phone, they don't actually want to do stuff. Do you get what I'm saying? I always find people don't want to do stuff. They want to install something and just make sure it kind of works, right? I've seen this with most recently with these Apple AirTags, you know, when you're tracking certain things, you know what I mean? They just want to put it in and make sure it works, right? All of the things that just kind of drive the process, right? You know, and I'm wondering, you know, again, that 75% number is kind of resonating really strongly in my head. And I wonder if investors would also, if that would really resonate as the thing that you're tackling first. Does that make sense? Right? Because information asymmetry, right? The idea of getting all the information together is very important, especially when somebody's had a traumatic experience. It's totally valuable. But what happens is when I think about just kind of the process, right? I could like, you know, the way I would look at it, right? And I'm thinking about my daughter, right? My daughter is 10 years old and eventually she's going to want to go partying and hanging out and stuff like that. And I'm wondering if there is a solution where you have a crowdsourced system or solution that, you know, depending on where she is and at what time, you know, her phone will start buzzing, right? And say, hey, you're in a red zone right now. Do you know what I mean? This club at 11 o'clock is a red zone. Get out of there. Do you know what I mean? Not good, not good, not good. And then message goes to maybe me as the dad, but it also goes to her circle of network of friends. Do you know what I mean?
That's exactly what we're building essentially.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think the equivalent that we have is that if, for instance, your daughter was out and there was an instance of a terrorist attack or something that had just been reported as, you know, a particularly a dangerous incident, you could get notified. And well, she would immediately get notified on the app saying, avoid this area at all costs today. If you can get home now, do it.
Yeah, because for me, you know, when I think about things, and again, I obviously have an unbiased perspective on this. I know that you're really passionate about this, and I want to see if we can unpack this in a way where it's just easy. Like, you need 150,000 pounds. It's not a lot of money either, right? And I'm trying to, like, you know, that simple one hook, right? Because sometimes you can drown the investor in terms of features. You know what I mean? But I've always discovered that, like, you know, if you do one thing really, really well, okay, then it just, you know, it gives you the enough inertia to get it going, right? Because I know that you spoke about a lot of the features. And for me, I want to have like that first magical feature, but also recreate what happens in 2022, right? And so in 2022, you know, we used to have Neighborhood Watch. Emily, did you
Yeah,
guys have that? Do you have
we
that
have
in?
an equivalent.
Yeah, well, so in Canada and the United States, we have something called Neighborhood Watch, and there's people out there, and what's really interesting is I don't have the time to do it, but there's a lot of people out there that are part of Neighborhood Watch. We have a Facebook group in my neighborhood, okay? And like, if I put my garbage out wrong, okay, on my curb, somebody reports it. Somebody takes a photo and sends it on the group. And they're like, look at this guy. You know, I'm like, wow, somebody has enough time to do this. And so when I think about what you're doing, right, and I look at this in terms of systems and processes and everything that happens, would it be interesting if what you created was a next generation neighborhood watch that would apply to residential areas, commercial areas, entertainment districts, and stuff like that?
Right. It might pivot in that direction. The concern that I have is that it would veer too far away from the sexual health and safety aspect, which is the only thing that we're really lacking in terms of tech at the moment in the UK. So
Yes.
we have Nextdoor, which is an equivalent of Neighborhood Watch, and you can talk about
Sure. Yeah,
any
yeah,
gig ratings and things. And
yeah.
it does work quite well, but we are just lacking this one platform, a go-to platform that digitizes a lot of. So, for instance, I was a victim of rape when I was younger, and what's come of that is I witnessed firsthand the lack of resources that are available. I was put on an 18-month waiting list to see a psychiatrist, and then was charged, £100 an hour, which is just absurd. I had to suffer from PTSD, panic attacks, things that affected my life on a very, very deep level and daily level that I had to figure out on my own. There were no communities that I could tap into. And people, someone was asking about existing companies that are in this scene. I'll give you a couple of examples. So we have one that is just an SOS functionality, and that sends a message to police. That doesn't interest me at all. I don't want to involve police when I get frightened on my run that someone might be following me. They don't have time for that. Then, there's another app that does somewhat track safest travel route home, but doesn't have enough data. So we're going to be working with them. For us, we're just essentially highlighting crime hotspots and doing this whole notifications if something were to happen nearby, or if there was an attack on a bus, don't take buses that day. Here's a notification highlighting what's going on around you. It's just that also with the holistic nature of what I've done, I know it's quite intense when I speak about it with investors, but the first response I get is, have you considered this feature, or have you considered this feature? And obviously the answer is absolutely. And these are all cheap and easy to build. I've already built these on my own, and I've raised, I've only spent 46K on development, and out of the 150,000, I've raised 82. And so, this is easy stuff to pivot with. It's easy to integrate. It's a huge network of companies that we can work with. And we're B2B2C. And at the moment, what we're finding is that it's large corporates that are more interested in paying for our services. So it just keeps getting more and more interesting and more broad.
Yeah, my question is around, the user journey, right? The reason I bring it up, Emily, is for me, I actually don't go into features per se. It's more about the user journey, right? And again, the thought process around it is that there needs to be an app, I feel, that is there, that's in real time giving feedback on safe spots. And if they happen, because that's what a lot of people will download that. Do you know what I mean? And then what happens is, if an incident were to occur, that app is already there. It says, okay, the incident, whether you need to take photos or log it or take a voice note, exactly what happened, because it's still, all of that stuff. And then do you get what I'm saying? The whole user journey part. When
Absolutely.
you were talking about it, and again, this is just how I heard it, is, if it's just about after, I don't know if a user is going to actively go on the internet and download an app, right? Do you get what I'm saying? It needs to be like there's kind of a, and your hope is actually to keep as many people safe, right? When I think about your metric, when I think about this, is how many, and let's call a spade, right? Of the 75% of people, most of them are women, okay? That's the truth, right? And so let's try to keep, UK women safe, right? That's your metric, right? How many, this lady's downloaded it and she's had a safe experience for the last month or 6 months or 12 months. That's the metric that you build out, right? Because again, it comes down to the user journey, right, Emilie? And so I feel like plugging into Nextdoor, plugging into all these other things, just to kind of give them a simple, easy way to say, hey, where to go, where not to go, and real time, like today it's walk day, it's not bus day, or it's don't hit the clubs, and this place is lousy, and there's a, new owner doesn't give a, you know what I mean? Stay away. You build the hotspots elements, right? Hotspots and cold spots, right? And that gives the person a sense of security and knowledge and information asymmetry on how they can, unfortunately, right? Like in markets like the UK, it gives them that sense of security and knowledge in real time for that avoidance. But if anything were to happen, and even if it's a minor element, do you get what I'm saying? Because there's different levels of sexual harassment, I'm assuming, if a guy whistles at you and, that's different than some of the other things, you can quickly capture it, boom, 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 and you're like reporting it to the neighborhood watch, and it's boom, done, right? And I feel like that element, I just feel again, it's just because from a user journey perspective, it would be awesome to have this army of, people, this digital neighborhood watch in all these elements. And then the post element, when the event occurs, the right elements are there. They know they can go directly to the app and start logging everything, because timing matters, evidence matters. And then from there, they can also leverage your platform, and maybe you can create an intelligent chatbot environment that can, in between the time that you need to go to the NHS system, which might take months, you can start to facilitate a conversation that allows them to unpack, hopefully de-stress, or you know what I mean? There's somebody to talk to, somebody who's anonymous, that's not your family, because sometimes this stuff happens within their family and it's even worse. Does that make sense, Emilie? Right?
It does. Yeah, no, it does. I think it's definitely.
And I apologize. It's just I feel like if you can get that, and you have this army, and like corporates, I'm not a big fan of corporates when it deals with stuff like this, right? Because corporate greed and all this other stuff relates to a lot of other challenges. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'll be honest with you, Emilie, like, if an alcohol company is going to sponsor you, it's kind of a cop-out. Do you get what I'm saying? Because Absolutely. They're providing the intoxicants that might drive the assault, and they're going to give you some money. So if you ask me, and I'm just speaking openly, honestly, as a dad and as a loving husband and a loving son, and somebody that I just think it's a cop-out. I think it has to be the people themselves. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. So it's definitely our focus. B2C always has been, but it's the easier one to tap into. We're doing that through universities and then word of mouth, but we're also working with a company that does micro and macro influencing within universities. So it pays university students small amounts to broadcast. And so we've got that side of the B2C figured out. But when it comes to kind of what's going to get us off the ground financially, because we are very much for profit, is that it's the B2B side of things. And so at the moment, it looks like our first client will be Sky. And the reason being that at the moment they are providing, so all of these larger corporations tend to have quite a lot of money set aside for for these advantages that they can provide their employees. And so they actually quite a bit of money put aside for it. They might be bringing people in to discuss well-being. They might be giving you access to personal safety training courses, you say kickboxing, that's and so we are actually going for that, and Sky want to pay. They want to buy 7,000 subscriptions for their employees here in the UK, and so we're working on that at the moment. But what I think is the message that we're putting out is kind of be MiSeia approved, and provide this app to your employees, and we're going down that route with pubs, bars, and wanting to provide training also further down the line, and so it's just an entire network that's very, very broad, and it's not how we're going in for early adopters, but it's very much where we're headed. So it's very much our go-to-market strategy over the next year or two.
Got it. All right, Emilie. Now, would you like me to pitch your idea back to you?
I'd love that.
Okay. Now, if I may, I'm going to continue on my path. Okay. I'm going to pitch you the idea and keep it kind of user-centric, right? The user-centric thing, right? Because, you know, the B2B model is there. It might not be as scalable and repeatable, right? Because you do have corporates that might come in. You know, maybe the 7,000 people use it, maybe they don't, but just the idea of, when I look at this, I see this as a next generation neighborhood watch social network. That's how I see it. Do you know what I mean? It's a community of purpose. Okay. You know, and so I will attempt to pitch this in that manner to you. Okay. I'll even talk to you a little bit about the modeling that we have, right? And obviously you're talking to corporates, and I can even bring in how I would approach corporates, right? And how they would support this, right? And make sure that they can participate. But I'll just give it a shot. And again, you know, and I appreciate your candidness and your feedback. And obviously you're the best obviously this is something you're really passionate about, and this is something that the world needs. But I'll give it a try at least, right? And you know, see how we go. You need 150,000 pounds, correct?
That's right.
Right, and that's it's at par at USD now, right? You know, so I don't have to do any calculations anymore. So Emilie, I'll leave it to you to introduce yourself, and we will go from there. All right, over to you. Go ahead.
Right. Hi. So I'm introducing myself as a potential investor.
Correct. I will, for 2 minutes, I will be the founder of your business. That's how it works, right? Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Emilie Nelson. I invest in social impact. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you for making the time. My name is Singh, and I'm part of the MiSeia team. You might not know this, but in most of the developed world, including here in the United Kingdom, over 70% of the population has had to deal with some form of sexual harassment. Okay. And it's 2022, right? And having been a victim, I wanted to see if there was a way that we could take matters into our own hand, because the governments are not doing enough. They're over leveraged. They're focusing on other things. Community services haven't worked. And so we felt that through this platform, we could create a next generation platform in 2022 to really revolutionize that process and help change in prevention, reporting, as well as recovery, right? If somebody goes into this. And so what we've done is pretty simple. The first thing around prevention is we've plugged into Nextdoor and all the different platforms out there, and we allow our users to be able to get a real-time feed on hotspots, which could potentially be a place of danger, right? Whether it's where they are right now or where they want to go. And so they get all this information. If And through this journey, we have a neighborhood watch type of experience where we have people that are actively going around to make sure places are safe. And then if an incident does occur, we do have a one-click red alarm button that helps guide the individual on exactly what they need to do, with the actions they need to take, the photos, the evidence, all the information, so they can file the report and get a sense that they can speak to somebody through our chatbot technology, so they feel like they've communicated with somebody. Finally, the last step is around the recovery. And so we've put all the information, articles, access, clinics, everything together to make sure if the person does have an experience, that they have all the information in one place and they can get access to this as quickly as possible and as inexpensively as possible. Our hope through this impact investment of £150,000 from you is that we can create this next generation safe neighborhood watch environment and lower the sexual harassment by 50% in the UK over the next 5 years, and be in a position where the long-term effects of sexual harassment are greatly removed. I'd love to show you what I built, and I hope that you can participate in a very important social good. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Emilie, that was my pitch. Okay. You know, I tried to paint the story of prevention, reporting, and recovery, the three components. I didn't go into features, if you notice. It was just three things that happened because I don't think investors care too much about the features. They want to know this is done right, this is done right, and this is done right. And then I tried to, you know, build in the element of the real-time reporting and information and the hotspots. And if they asked me the question, because the first question would be, Emilie, is how do you make money, right? In the prevention space, to be able to provide more real-time information, people can pay for a coffee, right? They can pay $6 a month or something, right? Just to have more updated information, okay? That happens all the time. And it's a cup of coffee, right? You know what I mean? For your safety, right? I mean, I would say all dads would, you know what I mean? Like, there's tons of people that would pay that, right? You could also get the corporates to sponsor all that stuff. Do you know what I mean? I would see it as a beautiful thing, right? You know, this real-time data is brought to you by this alcohol company, right? Do you know what I mean? Prevent it, right? Do you get what I'm saying? I think the idea of a sponsor paying you to help build the best-in-class prevention component is worthwhile, right? You know, not on the tail end, because on the tail end, I just think it looks bad. From a Canadian perspective, I think that's a bit of a cop-out. You should be getting hundreds of thousands of dollars, Emilie, on the front end to make sure that you have the best real-time notification, you know, prevention component. And yes, the Johnny Walkers of the world and all these other people should be paying. You know what I mean? They should be paying you and build that out. And I feel like this is something from an impact investment perspective, because you talked about impact investment. An impact investor would want to know what the improvement's going to be, right? And so when I look at it, I see two elements. Number one is dropping the 75%, right? The 75% to, you know, even if you do 15% improvement, Emilie, is that a lot? It's huge. That's huge, right? Okay. The other thing is the number of reporting, right? See, the thing is that if you lower, the way I look at it from a mathematics perspective is you lower the amount of incidences, but you actually increase the amount of reports that are happening. Does that make sense? You want people to report, right? You know, because that's the path to recovery, correct? So you want to make sure like 100% of these types of incidences are reported, correct? And so you improve that, and you also have an element on the tail end that recovery, You have people that are satisfied with the recovery pathway, the treatment pathway. Those are the three things you do. And you get the impact investor on the front end, okay, to pay for this whole thing. And you get the corporates to pay, you know what I mean, for this real-time access. And I just see it, I just see this, you know, that's how I would position it, right? Again, $150,000 is not a lot of money, actually, right? No. You should be able to get these components. I sense that you might need more as you start to build this, but that's kind of the thought process I have. All right.
Yeah. Our next funding round will be 750K at a £5 million valuation.
Yeah. So again, we'll talk about the valuation piece offline. This is more just around the elevator pitch and just kind of how you structure it, right? You know, and what I wanted to do today was, having heard your pitch, you know, the features element, right? If you can, I always find it's better to kind of present the boxes that you're tackling and how much you're going to improve that box, right? So prevention, reporting, recovery, and what you plan on doing and how you plan on doing it, right? And for me, I'm like, wow, like who wouldn't want to give you money to improve this space? Do you know what I mean? I mean, who wouldn't? Right? But I feel like we should play that story rather than the features of an app, okay? Because if they don't know what geofencing technology actually is and how it works, because geofencing has been around for a long time and it's evolved, but some people might not care about it, right? They should trust that you figured out the mechanisms to create a certain space safe, right? And the way I see you working, and again, it's my mathematical brain, but this is how investors see things, is like, let's make sure that, for instance, you choose one entertainment district, okay? And suddenly it becomes the safest place. You know what I mean? It goes from, you know, 1,000 sexual harassment cases drops to like 100, and you prove it. Then you're rocking and rolling, and you just keep on replicating that, right? It's your franchise about the space. And it's just a tweak. I haven't added anything new, Emilie. I haven't done anything. I haven't added any value in terms of new features or anything like that. It's just kind of how I package it and position it. And obviously, it's easier for me to just spend half an hour with you now. It's harder to do it. It's a tough topic to talk about. It's a tough topic it's a sensitive topic for corporates, right? It's not easy. But I feel like if you weave it out like this and you drive it, you'll ultimately get some amazing results. Okay. Yeah. Right. So I want to thank you again for sharing, you know, and congratulations on what you've built, right? This is something that the world needs. Okay. And so on behalf of the Hyper Accelerator, we're delighted to support what you're doing.